Is open now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. We're so excited for this one because actually, let me know in the chat, were you in our personal branding webinar back in January? Let me know, because we did have, that was our very first webinar of 2024, actually. And we predicted personal branding was going to be super big this year, and I think we were right. So we thought, let's revisit it again. It's a great topic. So very excited for this one today. And of course, I'm joined by Joe and our guest, Jenna. So we have a great squad here today to go over everything. But as we wait for some more people to trickle in, as usual, let me know where you're joining from in the chat. I see people, some of you have definitely been to our webinars before because you're already telling me. You just know I'm going to ask.
We have a few people from Halifax, Kalina, who spoke with us here as well. Like she's tuning in, so always appreciate that. Jen
Love it.
and Dixon are regulars, and we thank them for standing with us. We have a Montreal, Ariane from Montreal tuning in as well, and that's where Jenna is actually located today.
Love it.
Edmonton, Virginia, yeah, lots of different places. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Nice. I see a lot of Canadians here, which is awesome. Usually I see most people are usually based in the US, but I feel like this one right now, we have a lot of Canadians here. So that's exciting. But keep sharing where you're joining from, and we are going to hop right into some intros. So my name is Alyssa. I'm a community manager here at HeyOrca. So I work on our webinars, our newsletter, Facebook group, all that good stuff. And I'll pass it over to Joe.
Hey everyone, my name is Joe. I'm the Chief Executive Orca at HeyOrca, and I work closely with Alyssa and team on the community side of things. So really excited to share my lessons that I've learned posting, trying to build my personal brand over the past year. So very excited to dive right in, and I'll pass it on to Jenna.
Hi, I'm Jenna. I'm the Director of Marketing at USERP, which is an SEO agency, but I'm here to talk about personal branding because our CEO at USERP has a big following on LinkedIn, and we've built a newsletter and community called SEO Power Plays, which is now its own separate media brand, and I help run that as well. So thank you for having me on.
I'm super excited about this one because Jenna's going to be talking about from the perspective of building someone else's personal brand, which I'm super interested to learn a lot about because I think that a lot of people try to do it and it just doesn't hit the mark because it's not authentic. So I'm really interested to know, Jenna, like later on, like as you go through your slides, like how you guys did it. Because I think that's a lot of things that we're seeing right now. Like people are following other people. And how do you build other people's personal brand, but it seems like come across as authentic? So I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. Yeah, we're very excited to have you because, the last time we spoke about personal branding, we didn't have that side of it of, maybe you're building it for someone else. So very excited to have multiple different views on it. Speaking of building a personal brand for someone else, this is a great segue into our giveaway. So head over to our Instagram page. We have a poll up right now. The question is on the screen here. Does part of your role as a social media manager include helping someone else build their personal brand? So go vote on that poll. You have until noon, and noon tomorrow, not today. And tomorrow at noon, I'll be randomly selecting a winner who will be receiving a Amazon gift card. So definitely go participate in that. And then we can't just have one giveaway. We have to have two. So if you want to win another Amazon gift card, you have actually until Tuesday at noon for this one. So you have a little bit of time for this one. But let us know on LinkedIn what you learned from this webinar. So you could take a screenshot of a slide that really resonates with you and pop that on there. If there's maybe any tips, you could put that in the post, but let us know what you've learned and tag HeyOrca, and then I will be randomly selecting someone on Tuesday for the other Amazon gift cards. So a few different ways to win. There are some good sales right now, so you might as well try. It's easy.
Yeah, back to school.
Yes,
Back to
back to
school
school.
season.
Exactly. That's why I was like, why are there so many deals? That is why. That is exactly why. So yeah, you have 2 ways to win. So definitely participate in that. And then before we dive into everything, I actually have something very exciting to share. And this is actually going out in our webinar, or not in our webinar, in our newsletter tomorrow. But since we love our webinar community, we want to show you guys first. So let me share my screen here.
Drum roll.
Drum roll, yeah. I need to have that in the background. All right. So, coming soon, there's going to be a free HeyOrca plan. So, we really want to help our community out with personal branding, very on topic, or maybe you're just starting your freelance business and you want to get it up and going. We want to offer you a free HeyOrca plan. So it's coming soon. And since you are our, beloved community, we want you to have the first access to it. So we can send the link to this page in the chat. And there's actually a form at the bottom. So if you're interested in having a free account, fill out this form and you will be the first one to get access. So we're super excited about this. Definitely something that has been requested, and we can see how much it would help our community out. So you got to check it out. And I'm so excited. I see some excited people in the chat. I love to see it. Very mindful, very demure. Correct.
And Lyle has that form right there. And just want to take this time to just shout out our stands. I know a few of them are here. Kalina, Jen, obviously, Josh. I see Ashley there as well. So thanks for your feedback. We feel like this would be a one step in, helping our community build your brand, but also helping them build trust, with the HeyOrca brand as well, allowing them to experience what HeyOrca has to offer. And so we're very excited about that. So we'll be in touch stance around getting you guys an early access to this one.
Yeah. And a question here, does the email given matter, example, personal or corporate? Whatever one you want to give, it's probably best to use the email that maybe you'd want to sign up with, and then you can keep it all in one place. But yeah, whatever email you think you'll be using most is the one.
I would recommend if you already have a HeyOrca like corporate one, if your company has one, you want to sign up with like another different one because this will be another environment. So yeah, if you want to sign up with personal, probably a good like safe start as we go along.
Awesome. And great to see everyone so excited. We love it. So yes, definitely check it out. Lyle put the link in the chat, and I'm very excited to tell you guys about it. I was like, we got to talk about it today. It's perfect timing. But I will share the slides again, and we will dive right in. So today we're going to be covering a lot of good stuff. So I'm going to go over some personal branding myths, and then the benefits of having a personal brand. And then I'm going to pass it over to Jenna, who's going to talk about her experience building a personal brand for someone else. And then we'll pass it over to Joe, who will share his experience with his own personal brand. So we'll dive right in. So some personal branding myths. And if you've been on the fence about making a personal brand, I'm sure some of these myths have circulated in your mind. So let's tackle them. So the first one, personal branding happens overnight. So just like a lot of things, it does take a lot of effort and consistency with a personal brand and time. So, of course, with a personal brand, let's say you're building on LinkedIn and you have a post that, kind of goes viral. You can have kind of those quick wins, but overall, it does take time. So, don't get discouraged if you're starting your personal brand and it's kind of off to a slow start. It's something that definitely takes time. So don't expect to, grow your brand overnight. because in most cases, it does take a very long time.
You can also feel cringy at first. I know like the
Yeah.
first few time I'm like, I'm gonna be consistent about this, and I feel like, is this cringy? But I feel like you gotta just overcome that cringe and just go with it. Everything new is gonna be cringy at first. But after that you kind of like get used to it and you kind of know what's going to work and what's not. And I'm sure Jenna will be able to touch on a little bit about overcoming that, especially when you're trying to convince someone else to post as well.
Yeah, exactly. The more you post, the more comfortable you get. So over time, you'll be a pro. Don't even worry about it. And then the second one is personal branding is only for celebrities and influencers. So I think this is a common myth that we hear a lot. And celebrities and influencers, of course, they have their own personal brands, but anybody can have one. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, the experience you have. Anyone can get online and build one. So just because you're not a celebrity or an influencer already does not mean that you can't make one. It is
Everybody
for
can
everybody.
be everybody can be internet famous.
Exactly. Exactly. And the last myth, you have to be extroverted to have a personal brand. I think this one's probably the most popular one because when you see people posting on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, who are building their personal brand, the first thing you might think is, wow, like that person is so outgoing, so extroverted. But you don't need to be extroverted to have a personal brand. So you can definitely create content that fits who you are the most. So maybe you're not super confident on video, but you love writing. So maybe doing text-based posts on LinkedIn is more your vibe. Or if you are someone who loves videos, then you can head to TikTok. So, you don't have to be super extroverted at all. And I find on LinkedIn, I rarely see videos on there. So if you are someone who's a little more introverted, LinkedIn is a really good place to kind of get that brand going. Introverts working in social unite. I actually find a lot of social media managers are introverted at heart, which is very interesting.
Yeah, same. I just posted a comment too. I find like introverts spend a lot of time. No, I'm generalizing here, but like I think like we spend a lot of time in our heads, and then
Yeah.
social media is like an outlet, and like everyone's like, able to be creative that way. So that's why I found like the best social media managers are actually not extroverted. They're like when you meet them in real life, they're super low key, but
Yeah,
when you go on social, they're like totally different.
that is so true. It's like I remember in high school when I would have customer service jobs, everyone had their like customer service voice. It's kind of like your alter ego of when
Yeah.
you're working in like a restaurant or something. It's like kind of like your alter ego, and I feel like it's like that with social media managers as well. It's your other side of yourself.
Yeah, a couple people agree here. Tiffany and Natasha says, I think it's how we feel social. We
Yeah.
don't have to use the same amount of energy, but we still get to connect. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. So, why should you build a personal brand? What are some of the benefits? So, my favorite benefit, and probably the biggest one, is that it builds trust and authenticity with your community. So, your community, let's just use LinkedIn for an example, you're building your brand on LinkedIn. And as you post consistently, people are getting to know you more, they're trusting you more, you're showing your authentic self. And that will start to build a very strong community for your personal brand. But a perk of this also is if you work for another brand, it actually can translate over to that brand as well. So I have an example post here. It looks a bit small, but this is Noelle. She is a part of our customer care team. Shout out Noelle. She is a huge reader. She leads our book club. She's the best. So she did a post talking about the HeyOrca book budget. So she's using her personal brand to kind of talk about her experience with HeyOrca. And I don't know about you, but when I'm scrolling LinkedIn, I rarely am reading brand posts. I'm mostly reading, personal page posts. So when someone is working for a brand and they're talking about it on their own platforms, I actually get to know that brand so much more through them than the actual company page. So not only are you building trust with yourself and your personal community, but you're also building trust for the brand that you work for. So it can be very powerful, and people can learn a lot about the brand that you work for just from your own posts.
I think one of the things that people sometimes we tell ourselves around personal brand building is that, I'm a very private person. I don't want to put myself out there and things like that. One thing I learned from Noelle, as you can see, like you don't see her face in her posts, and she's actually a kind of a really good creator on Instagram as well. But she just talks about like the topic. So in Instagram, she talks about her books that she reads. So the main character is actually the books. So I guess one of the myth here is that you don't need to publicize your life if that's not your thing, but that doesn't mean that you can't build a community around your brand as well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's what stops some people, is that they feel like they need to post what they're doing all the
Like
time.
everything. Yeah.
So, and you can do that if you want, but if you want to be a little more private, you definitely don't have to share really anything about your personal life. You can really keep it to, the niche that you're talking about. And then this is a little screen capture from earlier this year. We did a little bit of a personal branding challenge. And this is just an example of some of the things that can happen when you're consistent with your personal branding. So a few of the highlights, we did it as a team. And a few of the highlights were we increased our webinar signups. We built a stronger community on LinkedIn. Collectively as a team, we brought in 778,000 impressions. We got some new customers out of it. The list goes on. And I think this was for 2 months. 2 months of an experiment. So just an example that if you give it a try, I promise something will come out of it for you. That is for sure. So now that we've covered the basics, we're going to get into the good stuff now. So I am going to pass it over to Jenna, who's going to tell us all about her experience.
Thank you. So like I touched on before, I help run personal brand a little bit for myself, but what I mainly do is help run Jeremy Moser's personal brand. And he is the CEO at USERP, which is the SEO agency that I work at. So part of Jeremy's personal brand is his LinkedIn account. He has a Twitter or X account, and he has a newsletter called SEO Power Plays. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've grown it to where it is, how we monetize it, and the different post formats that I've found have worked well under his own personal brand. I'm going to move on. So first of all, what platform should you focus on? So I touched on the platforms that we use for Jeremy's personal brand. He originally started posting himself without my help on Twitter X, started maybe 3 years ago when it was super popular for business and marketing content. That was the place to go. So my tip there is choose the media platforms to start with where your audience hangs out. And this tends to change a lot. Year by year, different platforms will come out on top. So first research what is performing well for your specific industry and start growing there. So with Jeremy, like I said, he was originally growing his following on X, but then LinkedIn started to become more popular and X was dropping off. So he started shifting his posting schedule to LinkedIn and putting more emphasis on growing his following there. And because social platforms can change so quickly as well, we wanted to make sure that we were getting his followers to subscribe to the newsletter so that we could reach them there for one, and also let them know where Jeremy is posting now so that they can follow him along depending on what platform he's focusing on. So once you've decided on the first platform to focus on, what I did for Jeremy is I looked at the top creators in his industry, which is SEO and content, and I noted down their exact post formats. So again, this will change frequently. Last year, slideshows were the top thing to do on LinkedIn. Slideshows are everywhere, getting tons of engagement. So Jeremy and I really doubled down on slideshows last year, and engagement was super high because of that. Then I'd say beginning of 2024, people were maybe getting a little tired of seeing slideshows all the time. We saw engagement dropping off. So short form video is being pushed a lot on LinkedIn now, and that's a more popular format. So definitely make sure you keep a constant eye on the top performing content in your industry, and specifically the format that they're packaging it in, because what worked a few months ago might not be performing as well now. So you want to be the first to try out new formats. And so I touched on the newsletter. So like I said, you want to try and bring your social media followings to whatever action you want them to take. If you have a product, that could be starting a free trial or becoming a customer. If you have a personal brand in the form of a newsletter, try and get subscribers from social into your newsletter. That being said, that doesn't mean to stop focusing on social. Social is where you get the first eyes on your content in the first place. It just adds a little bit of a safety net if something happens to that platform. And so that's what we do with Jeremy, is every post pretty much has an action. If it's a sponsor post, of course, it's to promote whoever's sponsoring. We try and get lots of people to go to his SEO Power Plays newsletter, or occasionally it'll be more sales focused and we're trying to directly get leads for the agencies. So that will be the action there. And then lastly, I want to say is focus growth on 1 to 2 platforms at the start and then branch out later. Obviously, there are tons of options of social media platforms to choose from, and I find it hard myself to kind of take control and not go overboard and burn myself out by posting everywhere. So I would say pick 1 to 2 to start. Focus all your efforts on posting consistently. So that's what Jeremy did with Twitter and X, and then now LinkedIn. We're now expanding to YouTube. So once we built up a following on those 2 platforms, we're ready to add a third on there. So I found that to be helpful, focusing on a few to start until you have that audience. And then it becomes easier to add on more platforms because you can repurpose content there. All right. So
I just want to point out as well, we did put Jeremy's LinkedIn in the chat. So if you want to check it out, it is there.
All right. Thank you. So the post formats that have worked for us outside of the actual, like whether it's a slideshow or video, lead magnets are really effective for not only growing his following. So for example, we posted a lead magnet about 2 weeks ago on Jeremy's LinkedIn, and his following on LinkedIn itself grew really quickly in that week, but we also got tons of subscribers to the newsletter. So lead magnets are very rich documents full of information, something that's valuable enough where people would be willing to give their email address. And they tend to go viral on LinkedIn as well because they're driven on engagement. So usually we'll ask people to follow and then drop a comment, and then they'll get access to the lead magnet. So obviously that sparks that engagement, sparks a lot of reach on LinkedIn. So those are very effective. That brings me to my next point, which is case studies. So that lead magnet happened to be centered around a case study from the agency. So it was 4+ hours of free video training on how we helped Monday scale organic traffic by 1,300%. So Jeremy filmed some simple Loom videos, nothing high production, just a slideshow, Loom videos of the exact strategy breakdown behind that, packaged it in a landing page on his newsletter landing page. And then we promoted that on LinkedIn, and that's what went viral and helped us grow both the LinkedIn following and the newsletter really fast. So we do those on a regular basis. I say we create one massive resource every month or so, and really leverage that, and can also repurpose it into smaller posts as well. And then SEO tutorials. So I found it to be really effective to do simple step-by-step tutorials. Those perform really well on LinkedIn for us. So something that the reader will see and can right away try themselves or action right away. So we found specific tutorials to be more effective than, say, like a broader post about a strategy. So if that's something that would fit with your industry, I definitely recommend testing that out. And it's also a really great opportunity to bring sponsors into the mix. So if you have a sponsor collaboration someone, with someone who really works with your audience, you can create a tutorial around their product, and make sure it's educational, of course, not just salesy. But if you can incorporate it naturally into the tutorial, you really believe in the product, it actually is effective, then that's a really great way to get engagement, provide valuable content, and monetize your personal brand as well. Short videos as well, we're experimenting with, because it is being pushed on LinkedIn right now. And then opinions and hot takes. This is something that I get Jeremy to manage and write himself, because it is his own personal opinion or hot take on the industry. So these perform really well. We don't do this a lot. I find these are good every once in a while, to really spark a conversation. And obviously, engagement is the best thing you can do on LinkedIn, and to get as many comments and reposts as possible. So those are the post formats that have worked really well. Any questions before I jump into this last slide?
I think we're good. We do have a comment. Jen says, I'm down with SEO tutorials. I use it a lot at work. Yes, I feel like the tutorial idea is a really good one, because I think, especially on LinkedIn, people love learning. So if you can do a super quick tutorial on something, that's a great way to just capture some of the attention really quickly.
Totally. I'm always saving tutorials that I see on LinkedIn for my own benefit as well. And I always go back in and try them out. So they definitely work really well, for lots of industries. So I recommend trying it. All right. So finally, I'm going to talk about the growth methods that have worked for us. So we grew the newsletter pretty quickly. Jeremy is at 30,000-ish followers on LinkedIn now. I think on X he has about 80,000. And then the newsletter is actually a new addition in the last year. So we were started with around 3K, but we've really invested in growing it in the past year, and we're at 15K subscribers now. So throughout the past year, I've definitely learned what's worked well for growing the newsletter and getting engaged subscribers, which is super important. You don't just want to have tons of new subscribers that don't open or engage with a newsletter. And these are the things that have worked out well for us that you could try. So first of all, I have cross promotion here. So Jeremy, when he first started on Twitter X, he had a group of peers that also had a large following, that he connected with and started having conversations with, and they started sharing their content. So if there are people in your industry that you're either already friends with or even just have a slight connection with, who have maybe the same following as you, slightly larger, slightly less, I really recommend engaging with them in public, commenting on their posts, resharing their posts, adding your own take, because of course their audience will see you and vice versa. So definitely cross promotion helped a lot. Engagement pods, this is very similar. So engagement pods are groups of people who have like a shared chat, where whenever they post something new, they'll drop the link and then everyone goes and engages with each other's content. These can be bad if you have a bunch of people in there who are not in your industry or are posting content that isn't very valuable. So I would say, if you're going to use an engagement pod, be very selective with it, and maybe choose people who are in your industry, you know, and trust, you actually like their content, and you know that if you are engaging with their content, you can actually provide value and not just be like, nice post. And it's obvious that it's not authentic. But engagement pods are really helpful, because when you're on social media, getting engagement quickly on a post, specifically within the first hour, is really helpful for increasing impressions. So that has been helpful for us. Lead magnets, which I touched on before, we switch it up in different formats. So we have free training in the form of video guides. You could do like a Google Doc ultimate guide to SEO in our example. Webinars as well, you can repurpose and turn it into a video and then provide access to that. So lead magnets are a great way to grow your following on social and also get them into your newsletter as well at the same time. And in these lead magnets, you can be a little more salesy at the end. Once you provided all this value, you can do a direct ask to sign up for your product or whatever it is you want to ask them to do that will actually drive revenue for you. And then finally, analyzing trends. So this is what I spoke about before. You want to do this constantly with social because things do change so fast. We do this weekly, just seeing what's working, creating like a swipe file of posts that have done really well for other people, using that as inspiration, doing a lot of research into new social media features, what's currently working format-wise, and just making that really a part of our process has been crucial for growth. All right.
Wow,
Thank
I
you so
feel
much.
like I've learned so much. I actually have a really, I have a burning question here. What's your workflow like? Like you're supporting Jeremy. Obviously, Jeremy is also putting in the work. I'd love to know sort of like how do you, as the marketer, how do you support his, content production? What does that look like when it comes to supporting someone else's brand?
Of course. Luckily, Jeremy is very hands-on, so he's an SEO as well, so he does have a lot of guest posts and he features on a lot of podcasts, so I have a lot of content to work with. So if you're in a fortunate position where your CEO does a lot of appearances or guest posts or anything like that, try and collect all the content they've done and repurpose it so that you can create social posts from that using their own voice, basically.
Right.
Um, as well, if your CEO or executive or whoever you're writing for is not as active on social or they're not as proactive with writing fresh content for you, then what you can do is interview them on a weekly basis and do a recorded call. Take that transcript and then turn that into content. So come to them with questions that are specifically hot in the industry right now, people are talking about, or do some keyword research. So you have specific questions people are searching for, things like that. Interview them, record it, and then you have a huge bank of content to work with for the near future. So those are really the two options: repurposing or creating that fresh content through interviewing.
Yeah, so the key here is not like ghost writing for that person. That's when I guess like it comes off as inauthentic, but then you're just taking that person's words and formatting it in like formats that make sense, like a lead magnet or video, whatnot.
Totally. So if Jeremy is not writing the content himself, and if I'm writing for him, it'll be something he's actually said or mentioned or talked about before. So it's nothing coming fresh from me. I'm really just pulling wherever I can bits of what he said before.
Very cool. I think it's my slide. Okay, yes. So Jenna's talked about how to support someone else's personal brand. I want to talk about my experience around building my personal brand. I actually started posting consistently on LinkedIn exactly almost a year since last year. So when we hired Ketsia, our former social media manager, she was really pushing on me posting, like go on LinkedIn. I really lost my confidence on LinkedIn just because I withdrew from social a little bit, which is ironic. I run a social media company, but I was like, I just need to take a break. And she really like encouraged me. She said, "You guys got to put yourself out there." And so I got to face the cringe. And I was like, "Sure, I'm gonna make myself a 365 challenge. I'm gonna post consistently for a year and see how it goes." So some of the results here is kind of bonkers. Like I went from like 5,000 followers, I think, to around 10,000. So I broke 10,000 last month. Ketsia was the one that messaged me and said, "I don't know if you noticed this, but you just broke 10,000." And then also the content impression here is like 9,000% plus from 365. Now, again, like I'm coming from like maybe one post a month kind of thing. But again, the impressions here just speaks for itself. So again, consistency, just overcoming the cringe, super important. Some of the benefits I found building in my own personal brand is these three things. Number one, I found my community. So before posting on LinkedIn, I felt a little bit isolated, even being in social media. But posting on LinkedIn like allows me to really connect with people in the social media space. And we have stands as well from the HeyOrca pod. You guys are on LinkedIn and we're able to interact not only in the HeyOrca Slack channel, but also on LinkedIn. That's been really, really great. Creating just brand awareness about why we do what we do, what's different about HeyOrca compared to like Hootsuite, for example, our competitor. And it allows us to really position ourselves as we always say we want to be the software with soul, and we want to make sure that we're putting ourselves out there. And I was able to make new connections as well. People sending me DMs. We set up like calls and really get to know people on a more personal level. It's been really, really cool.
We do have a quick question. Jonathan says, how much of that growth is about your level as CEO versus someone who is lower on the corporate ladder? Do you find your audience to be on the same level?
So actually, so before I post it consistently, that's a really good question. Before I post it consistently, a lot of my connections or my community are actually founders, like other founders, other CEOs. But my challenge was actually breaking into the social media manager space, not being a social media manager myself. And so I had to really reinvent myself. And I don't think a lot of people knew me as the CEO of HeyOrca at that time. Even now, when I'm sort of interacting, I do use that as leverage sometimes. So it's talking about being able to access a lot of data because of running a social media company. But I would say it definitely influences, I guess, the position wise. But I think that it's more so about the value. If I'm the CEO of HeyOrca, but I'm not putting value, I'm always selling stuff, I don't think it's going to work. And which is sort of like the slide that I love to share in terms of like what I found makes content that resonate. Do you find your audiences to be on the same level? Yeah. So my audience right now are social media managers, like social media managers, digital marketer folks, actually very few founders now because I interact mostly on the social media space. Hope to answer your question, Jonathan. But here are some of the things that I found really, really important. Number one, it needs to start with what you love. Like just like Jeremy. Jeremy loves SEO content. He's good at that. You got to start with something that you're passionate about or like gives you joy when you're talking about it. And you also want to talk about what you're good at. So identify things that you're good at. In Jeremy's case, it's about SEO. And when you combine those two, you're going to have fun creating content. And that's going to give you the consistency to keep going. But at the same time, you have to take into account what your community needs as well. Like who are you speaking to and what they're actually interested. For us, our community is you guys. And from what we know is that our community wants something that's tactical, something about social media, something about marketing, something about mental wellness. Those are the things that really resonates with our community. And then after that, aligning with our brand. So what's our brand values? So for me as a personal brand, I identify as being very transparent and personal. And those are the things that I sort of take into account when creating it. But I'd say like having joy when you're creating content is super underrated because that's going to help you like be consistent with what you're doing. So for me, this is my content Venn diagram, just to like simplify it. So what I really am passionate about is building HeyOrca and building a community around social. What I'm good at, for me, I'm not very good at video. Still kind of like trying to get comfortable with video, but I know writing is something that I'm more comfortable with. So I chose LinkedIn as my platform. Whenever I post something, I want it to be transparent and personal as well. So that's sort of the brand narrative I wanted to create. And then from experiences, talking to our stands, talking to our customers, they really wanted something. Every time we post things that are educational or behind the scenes or something entertainment that's related to their field, that generally perform well as well. And so I want to make sure that we hit all of that to make sure we have a resonating content. So that's sort of like what I've learned in terms of what worked and what didn't. And if you're sort of thinking about content pillars, this is a little bit of a trick that I found really, really easy to understand what to post. So if you're creating a table, on one side, put the values, like why do people come to you for? So for me, it's about education, behind the scenes, and entertainment. And then on the top, you just put the people that you want to talk to. So for me, it would be social media managers and my HeyOrca members, like HeyOrca users. And so you just combine those two. So for me, I want to be posting about education for social media managers. If we're releasing new features, I want to talk about education for HeyOrca users, and then do the same thing for like behind the scenes and entertainment as well. So that way you have like very different kinds of mix around that. And then to Jenna's point, then you can experiment on different formats that work based on the content pillars that you have.
And just a quick note, I know we have a few questions in the chat. I will grab those questions when Joe's done his section, just to make sure that we're good on time.
Yeah, I'm just going through a few more real quick. So this is super relevant for me because we know that this is what we tell people, like, hey, not every content is going to perform, but it is hurtful. Sometimes you put so much like thought, but what really helped me was having fun, enjoying the process, but also understand that it's all about finding content market fit. I'm sure Jeremy didn't find his content market fit on day one. It's really about showing up, having fun, talking about something that he's passionate. So one thing that helped me was really taking a look at like the next 30 days. The next 30 days for me is just to find content market fit. And that's about like just showing up and posting based on the content pillars that I have. So the next steps are actually pretty basic. So it's like, what do I do next? So my advice would, if you want to try, just put the values and who you want to talk to, then that's your content pillar. Then determine how often you want to post. You don't have to post. There's no magic number. You just need to be consistent about it and just lay it out into a calendar. It could be an Excel spreadsheet. If you have HeyOrca account, you can just plan it out on your HeyOrca calendar and just commit to doing it and planning it out. Scheduling content definitely helps as well because you're not going to second guess yourself on the day off. Where to find inspo? So this is something that I found helpful. So first of all, audit. Just look at some of your top posts over the period of time and just try to replicate that success. The second one is Google Alerts and Google Trends. So if there are topics that I'm interested in, I put that on my Google Alerts so that it tells me what's trending and what's alerting. Also, HeyOrca's brief, Alyssa tells me what's trending every week as well. I also go to other accounts, like Jenna mentioned, other creators. I don't call them competitors. I guess you can call it competitors, but like other people for inspiration. And then comments as well. So it's turning comments into content. So those are some of my learnings here, just summarizing. Don't take it personally. Approach it like an experiment. Every content is a piece of data. If your community is not reacting to it, that just means that they're not interested. And then maybe you can try it a few times. And if it's just not resonating, that's a data point that says like they don't want to hear about that. And that's not going to resonate. Keep showing up, document your ideas, have a swipe file, like just what Jenna mentioned, screenshot things that inspire you. And then at the end of the day, do more of what works and less of what doesn't. And then don't forget to have fun. Like I think fun is something that is top of mind for me because that's what's going to keep you going in the long term.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, we do have a few questions in the chat here. I'm going to grab, I think the first one was from Tiffany. I think this is for Jenna. So can the lead magnet be done organically or is it more of a paid ad that people see?
Organically, we've never actually, as far as I know, I can't say for sure, but I haven't personally pushed it with any funding or done a paid ad, just organically. So we created it and then posted it to Jeremy's LinkedIn account and then just let it run its course. So obviously we had the engagement pods and those people engage with it. But if a lead magnet is very valuable, it will kind of just become viral on its own. So we haven't had to push it with any budget.
Nice. Thank you. And then another one from John here says, as an agency owner, how much of your time should be spent building your brand versus your agency's brand?
Jenna, if you want to take that one. I feel like it's, very relevant.
In a perfect world, if you have tons of budgeted resources, go full throttle with both. If there's benefits to both. But I would say if you are limited, I would emphasize a personal brand if focusing on social media. So because people do respond to people better. And then on the agency side, if we were limited with budget and resources, I would focus on building case studies and things that can support the personal brand. But I think that's how I would split it. So if I had to, it would be personal brand, social media, growing the newsletter, and then creating some supporting content in the background around for the case studies and for the agency.
And if you're the agency owner, I think one mindset shift that's helped me is like, if you're the owner, then building your personal brand is building your agency's brand as well, because people are following you as a person and you're closely tied, obviously, to the company brand.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then the last question here from Andrew. So I help manage 2 brands in addition to trying to get my own going, in addition to a full-time job in the public service. I find I'm always trying to play catch up and it's my personal brand that suffers. Do you have any tips and tricks when it comes to time management, when it comes to content creation and brand management?
I can definitely relate to this one. I'd love to know what you would say, Jenna, to that question. But I think it comes down to like time blocking, like really prioritizing it. So yeah, like if I don't prioritize it, I allow others. So I need to treat content creation equally as important as like a meeting. And it needs to be a calendar event on your calendar. If it's not a calendar event on a calendar and all of us are busy people, something's going to supersede it. And so for me, part of staying consistent is actually treating it just like any other job description I have, like one of it being content creation. And that's helped me stay consistent and planning a little bit more ahead of time versus like trying to find something to post the day off. I'd love to know, Jenna, if you have any other thoughts on that.
I completely agree. Creating content in batches has really helped us out. As well, obviously posting on social media requires like daily, you need to be online to answer comments. So I would set aside, you just need like 30 minutes a day maximum to once you've created that content in batches, that's all ready to go, and it's scheduled. But then when you go in, just have a 30-minute time block where you engage with other people and create kind of like a little checklist. So it doesn't feel so overwhelming and it doesn't take so much time. I found that helpful personally.
Another pro tip that I implement is like those people that you really follow. I put there's a notification bell on LinkedIn and on X as well, where you can say like, remind me every time this person posts something. That way you're not gonna, you're always able to like go and, engage with those people that are in your community.
Awesome. And yeah, I'd have to agree with time blocking. That's like my number one thing. If I have it blocked, then it's more likely that I'll actually do it when I say I'm going to do it. So time blocking is the best. I know that we are up on time, but I do want to mention, if you're interested in learning more about content planning, we do actually have a webinar on September 26th. With Joe and Christina Garnett. We'll be going over how to create community-led content. So if you're interested in learning about all of that, I just put the link to that in the chat. It's going to be a really good one. So yeah, definitely come to that if you're wanting to learn more about the content side of it.
And Jenna, thanks so much for coming on. We got to have you back for part 2.
Yes. Thanks so much. It was fun. Yeah, for sure. I'd love to.
Yeah, it's really impressive what you guys are able to build with Jeremy's brand at USERP. So yeah, super, super impressed. And congrats on all the success as well.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you everyone for coming. And maybe we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.